Hello everyone, this is Satish again. We'll continue with chapter 11, aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Today we'll study macro equilibrium. Our goal is to learn how the economy settles at a particular level of inflation, at a particular level of employment. So according to Keynes, aggregate demand, which we studied earlier, summarizes the wishes of all the people that demand goods and services. And aggregate supply summarizes the supplier's behavior collectively in the economy. So macro equilibrium is achieved where the aggregate supply and aggregate demand meets. So here's the aggregate demand and here's the aggregate supply and meets over here. So we have a quantity level of Q1 and price level of P1 over here. So to give you a definition of macro equilibrium, the combination of price level and real output that is compatible with aggregate demand from buyers and aggregate supply from sellers. So only at E the market will settle. If you'll see, if the price level is higher, E1, here the demand is less because price level is too high, people cannot afford it. But at price level here, suppliers are making a lot of money, so they're willing to supply more. So demand is less, supply is more, there's a surplus. Price level below the equilibrium over here, now you can see the price level is too low for supply to supply, but demand is very high because price level is low, people want more. So now there's a shortage over here. So there's only one level where they get demand and they get supply. It means anywhere else there will be either shortages or surpluses. So according to Keynes, let's see. So according to Keynes, there are two potential problems with macro equilibrium. One is undesirability. What does he mean by that? He means that this outcome of aggregate demand and aggregate supply may lead to too much unemployment, and we'll use a graph to show you, or it may lead to too much inflation. So that's one problem, that market settles at either too high inflation or too low level of unemployment. The other one problem he says is instability. What does that mean? That means the economy may sell at a good level of price level, a good level of employment, but it may not stay there for very long. It may either move back to high inflation or low unemployment. So let me show you with the graph. So, so now first we're going to study the case of too much inflation. So let's say initially this is the AD1 aggregate demand and this is the supply curve. So AD1 is the aggregate demand curve, AS is the aggregate supply curve, and equilibrium is over here. P1 price level and QF full employment. So this is a very happy situation. We have a lower price level and we have full employment. So now imagine that stock market is doing very well. People feel wealthier, or the government has printed a lot of money. So aggregate demand shifts outward. So as the aggregate demand shifts outward, now it cuts the supply curve over here. So you can see now we have price level has gone to P2, which is higher, and we have gained some more output also. So in this case, the market has settled at too much inflation, or at a higher price level than we desire. Other scenario is too much unemployment. So again, we're going to start with a happy environment, happy set of circumstances. This is the aggregate supply curve, and this is the aggregate demand curve, and this is the equilibrium. So price level is P1, which we are happy, and the quantity QF, which quantity full employment. So we have a very happy situation. So now imagine that stock market crashes, or we expect this pandemics to last very long time. So people will be afraid of the future, they'll be afraid of their job. So now the aggregate demand curve is going to shift backward, and now this is the new aggregate demand curve shifting to the left side, that means lower aggregate demand curve, and this is aggregate supply curve, and it meets over here. So you can see there's some price level has gone down, but we have moved from full employment to lots of unemployment. So that's what he's saying, is that economy may settle at a level which results in too much inflation or too much unemployment. So so Keynes, remember, he's trying to explain what causes recession and depression, what causes business fluctuation. So according to him, business fluctuations are caused by shift of aggregate demand or shift of aggregate supply, or both. So what are the factors that may shift aggregate demand and aggregate supply? Consumer sentiment, like I told you, stock market crash or stock market doing very good. Business sentiment, tax change, change in interest rate. For example, if government change interest rate, say it's 6% now, they change it to 3%. So that will encourage people to buy more homes, more cars, lead to more business investment. Then the aggregate demand curve will shift outward. If the consumer sentiment is very pessimistic, then the aggregate demand curve will shift backward, it will decline. Same way, aggregate supply can shift also. Price of raw material, for example, if the price of oil goes up, oil is used in almost a lot of commodities, fertilizer, chemicals, and medicine. So if the price of oil goes up, all these items go up, and everything gets transported. So that's a part of the cost of shipping. Availability of raw material, for example, not too long ago, China, they used to supply rare earth elements that are used for electric cars. They say we're not going to ship them anymore because we want to reserve it for ourselves. So that led to a huge shortage of key elements. Business tax change, for example, America lowered the corporate tax rate from 35 to I think like 21%. So they encourage a lot of companies to move to USA, and that will increase their good supply. Business regulation, when the government increases business regulation, that leads to higher costs, that leads to lower aggregate supply curve. Immigration, like for example, I was telling you earlier, Japan is allowing more immigrants, so that will lead to that lead to increase in supply of labor, which will lead to aggregate supply moving outward. Natural disaster is another example that will have impact on aggregate supply. For example, in Japan, a few years ago, tsunami happened, and also there was a Fukushima atomic energy disaster. So because of the nuclear accident, all the atomic energy plants were shut down. That led to a huge decrease in electricity supply. So these are the factors that can shift aggregate demand or aggregate supply. So now there are different theories what causes recession or causes instability in the market. So there are demand side theories that emphasize the aggregate demand part of the equation. There are theories that emphasize the supply side of the equation, the aggregate supply curve. And then there's another school called Do Nothing School, which we'll talk about very soon. So demand side theories have two components: people that believe in fiscal policy and people that believe in monetary policy. Again, the goal of both of them is to shift the aggregate demand curve. So Keynes believed that aggregate demand curve shifts leftward because of insufficient demand, because people are saving too much. So he advocated a fiscal policy which requires government to either spend money or government to give tax rebates so people can spend. Then there's another school that believes the same thing can be accomplished a lot easier by manipulating money supply, and those are called monetarists. Milton Friedman is one of the great monetarist economists who died a few years ago. So he believes same thing can be done by increasing or decreasing money supply. When you increase or decrease the money supply, you have impact on interest rate. So let's say the economy is in a recession. So what you do is you increase the money supply, which will lead to lowering the interest rate, and lowering of the interest rate will encourage people to buy more cars, more houses, and more business investment. So this manipulation of money supply and interest rate is called monetary policy. So this side again emphasizes the demand aspect of the aggregate demand and aggregate supply equation. Then there are people that believe that instead of manipulating the aggregate demand side, you should manipulate the aggregate supply side. So this school is called supply side theory, supply siders also. And they believe the aggregate supply curve is responsible for economic trouble. So what are their what do they advocate to solve the problem? Increase immigration, which lead to more supply of labor, free trade, low taxes on individuals and corporations, so that will incentivize people to work more and produce more, and less regulation, which will lower the cost of production and increase supply. So here is the graph, real GDP over here, or I've seen real GDP is related to employment. So I have employment over here, and we have price level over here. So so this is the aggregate demand curve, and this is the initial supply curve, and economies are E1, 90% employment. And remember, 95% is because of full employment. So what they're saying, by pursuing any of these policies, we shift the aggregate supply curve outward, and now we have aggregate supply curve AS2. And now this existing aggregate demand curve, now look, it meets at E2. So now we have a lower price level and we have more employment. So according to this school, supply side is the best policy because it results in higher employment and lower inflation, which is good for us. We are getting 2 for 1. We are getting lower prices and high employment. Then there's a third school called Do Nothing School. This school is associated with the classical economists and the Austrian school. They believe that government intervention is the root cause of economic trouble. So what they say is government manipulation of money and interest rate is the reason we have recession and depression. So they believe that we should leave the economy alone. They are saying is that we are not sure what is the shape of the aggregate demand curve, whether it looks like this or this or this. They're not sure. And they're not sure what the shape of the aggregate supply curve. Remember, the classical school believe it's vertical, and Keynesian school believe that it's sloping upward. So they say we're not sure. And even if we are sure what the aggregate demand curve, aggregate supply curve looks like, he said we are not sure that we can manipulate them through spending money or printing money. And example they give is Japan. Japan had a severe economic trouble in 1980s, and they tried fiscal policy, they tried monetary policy, and nothing worked. So they give Japan as an example that government should not butt in. So this concludes the chapter, and I'll see you next time.